Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Laud Times podcast. Doing it a little bit differently today as we were hit with some news as far as how we do our podcasts. We're not able to live stream it to X at the moment. In order for that to happen, you have to have a subscription, which we signed up for, but it's still under review. Apparently, that came into effect 2 days ago. Thank you, Elon, for hooking it up and setting us up for the future. Checking in, guys. How we doing, Lou, in Austin, Texas?
What's up, fellas? Good to be here with everybody.
Good to have you back, my friend. And Edgar, on vacation, but now you're back. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. Just got back from Orlando last night. Ready to talk about Tigres. Ready to get back into it. We got a busy week.
Absolutely. It's a doble jornada, as you know, it's called in Mexico. But let's start off there with talking about the game which we tied against Atlas. 1-1 tie at Estadio Jalisco, which we were expecting some things to get better as far as system wise, and with Pauno and implementing his version of the team that we're looking at, but it still seems that some things are not coming into effect. um, we'll start there, Lou. Let's go with the lineup first. We kind of sort of hinted at it that we were probably going to repeat the same lineup, but we were expecting Tapia to get the start over Felipe Rodriguez. He did not. um, Repeated lineup, and thoughts on that, and your overall impressions of the 1-1 tie.
Yeah, disappointed that he didn't go with Tapia. We mentioned it on the pod last week. Tapia is the future. We've already seen what we get out of Felipe Rodriguez. I mean, he's not the goalkeeper for the future. So to me, it's a no-brainer to go with Tapia, and it ended up, I think, possibly costing us the game, right? Because I think that goal by Fulgencio, Tapia would have saved, in my opinion. Not to take anything away from a great shot from Fulgencio, but I think Tapia has better footwork, better movement, and I think he would have gotten there. So just a little bit disappointed with that. Other than that, Linus is still not up to speed. So that's one guy that I think I want to see eventually in the lineup, in the starting lineup, because I feel like we could benefit from his crosses. Overall, just disappointed with the performance of some of our players. Just going line by line, Felipe Rodriguez, I thought, had a poor game. Angulo had a terrible game. He was getting smoked by Murillo pretty much the entire night. He just had a hard time keeping up with him. And then just poor performance from Brunetta. He was the one that disappointed me a lot as well. I felt like he didn't produce, and it's one of those games where I think had he had a decent night, not even a great night, just a decent night, I think we would have easily won that game or comfortably won that game. So just disappointed from some of the fellas. Uh, Aquino had a great night. I thought there was several players that played well. Nico Ibanez, I thought, played pretty well, but just I feel like we're not getting production out of certain players, and that's something that we'll need to keep an eye on moving forward.
I'm surprised you didn't give more of his flowers to your boy Nico there. I thought he had an excellent game. I thought that he was involved. He had intensity. He was able to high pressure. He had a few chances, three to be exact. Obviously, he scored one of them. But I thought that this was a good performance, especially with the doubts that people were having with Gignac on the bench and Nico Ibanez starting. So definitely proud of him of stepping up and creating chances and obviously scoring his goal. Edgar, overall impressions about the game, and talk to me about Fulgencio scoring against us.
I mean, since I was out of town, I didn't really get to watch it live. I got to catch the highlights and the replay, but I went into it, just seeing the starting lineup. I was not 100% convinced that we were going to come out of this with 3 points once I saw that. But yeah, we did have players that shined. Aquino and Nico did better than I expected. I'll say that. I think he's still got a little bit more to go, but he had a really good game. And Fulgencio, of course, it's just
La
it's
ley
always
del ex.
frustrating. It's always it's always frustrating to see that your ex player has talent, has potential, but only wants to use it against you and wants to disappear for the rest of the season.
God, we can spend here a few good minutes talking about all the former players having great games against us. You know, it either with assist, just goals, defensive, like matches where they just held their own. It just sucks, right? And you there was a little frustration there also from the bench. Juan Pablo Vigon got up, during the broadcast. They mentioned also Gignac, I guess, flustered with the situation and the celebration of Fulgencia, but you can't fault him, man. The guy ran out of town. He was given plenty of chances, I thought, with the team. Maybe not so much with Tuca, but later on with Piojo, Coca, even with Chima, and then eventually with Siboldi, he got a good amount of starts. And there's obviously that controversial aspect of him, being under the talent agency of Siboldi's eldest son. So, loaned him out. Didn't have a great season per se last year, but he's been the regular starter for Atlas, and he scores a banger on us, like we mentioned. But like Lou said, I think that you can fault Felipe Rodriguez for a good portion of that goal positioning, athletic ability, even
Short arms.
short, yeah, physical attributes, even also like commanding, right, like commanding the defense, and on a corner kick, and not being aware or being proactive in a short play like that to stop a possible shot from out there. So definitely a lot of things that could have happened there. But overall, just a game that we should have done better. Should have scored a few more goals, and it seemed like it took us a little while to get into it. Atlas was playing some good football, and even the tactical approach of how to counter Paunovic, it was good, I thought, on their part. So I can't fault them. They played at home. Probably would have wanted a victory, but I think the tie serves as a victory for them in this early in the season against a team like Tigres.
Statistically, I'll say it again, very similar to last year's game. So remember at the end of the end during the off season, we had a conversation about Siboldi leaving and Pauno coming in, and what's going to change. And I remember most of us being in agreement when we said nothing's going to change unless we bring in players that can make some changes, right? So I think we're seeing it statistically. It's showing that we're playing the same as last season, and so we're getting similar results. It's interesting. Even the score was the same as last season, 1-1. So that this should be something to show the front office and say, hey, look, we're getting similar results as last season. We're probably only going to get so far this season if we don't pick up players. I think it needs to be stressed that we need players in certain key positions to be able to do anything this season. Otherwise, we're just going to be doing the same thing we did last season.
Yeah, and it's pressing, right? We are about to head into the third game of the season, and nothing yet as far as the future of Samir, the future Luis Quinones, which is he's obviously the starter at the right wing position. So it's just a little bit like disappointing, right? To see the team, same results as last year, and same style of play, even argue. So it's a little disappointing to even though the results are there, they're positive results, and we want as many positive results before we get to the Leagues Cup. I think that the team just has a lot more to give, and not sure if we can fault Paunovic so much yet, but I think that he definitely has a big task at hand in order to get to a better place as far as with this team.
We'll see what we're made of tomorrow, because last year we had a negative result against America, and let's see how we look. That's all I want to see is how do we look against America tomorrow? Which they have more firepower, more talent on the pitch, and let's see how we compete.
Do they really have more firepower, Lou, at the moment, right? So we know Sendejas is out. They're without Luis Quiñones. They're without Sebastián Cáceres. They're without Brian Rodriguez. Um, New acquisition would be that is playing as Chiquito Sanchez. And I think that's it. So in theory, we should have the upper hand,
True.
um, at least on paper.
Also
Play
playing at home.
at home. But I think the coaching, they have the edge, obviously, because they have more chemistry. They're able to implement what the coach wants them to do. So I think that they do have a tough task, right? Even though we're at home, most people would probably content if Tigres pulls off a tie, but I think that they really have a chance to cement a positive victory and have a resounding performance with play style.
We played them in the Super Campeones or whatever that cup was called in the off season, and we played well for what 30 minutes, and then we just faded away against what you could say is a B team, a B America team. So let's see how we do tomorrow. I mean, has Pauno changed anything from the offseason to now? We'll see. I think to me it's still going to be a good measurement for us.
Before we get a little more into this America game, Edgar, does I see on here that Dennis has a rant letter? Did he actually send you a letter to talk about Carlos Felipe Rodriguez?
No, I was waiting for it, but shout out Dennis. He's busy at camp, but we did want to give him a moment to share his thoughts. So, listeners, all I can tell you right now is he's not happy with it. He thinks we could have got a better result if Felipe was on the bench. I agree with him. It's not entirely his fault, but I think, we maybe could have swung the 1-0 if we had left Carlos Felipe behind.
So, do we start Tapia then this game against America? Does he get the nod? Important game at home.
He has to, man. Atlas was at a 0.51 xG, bro. So they, had you take away that mistake by Felipe Rodriguez and we win that game. I mean, just statistically, it's saying that 3 shots on goal the entire game for Atlas. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer to me. I don't see any negative, any downside to starting Tapia. Do you guys?
No.
Not at all. I mean, if anything, you're on point with the standpoint of the board. You bring a guy for the future. Your number one keeper is out. You bring him to train under this number one keeper, but you still have him around to train with him, even though he's suspended. You throw him into the fire with a team that is full of leaders, full of winning, successful players, and on paper, he should, have a bigger role and be up for the task because he has better teammates, right? Skill wise around him. So I think that it lines up with everything that, he's here for. And I'm not sure if Paunovic is just respecting the idea of Carlos Felipe earning, his contract renewal for a year and, respecting and not making, so many changes, but he's already started making changes with Gignac going to the bench. How much can it hurt to, sending Carlos Felipe Rodriguez to the bench? So that's the confusing aspect there. But I mean, I'm not sure, what he's thinking, but he definitely, like you mentioned, I think it's a no-brainer. I think he has to start and, just let us see how he looks, with his new colors and new teammates.
Agreed. And why would you bring him on loan if you're not going to play him?
Yeah, how are you going to get?
It would be a waste of money because Nahuel's out for a certain amount of games, so you might as well take advantage of that, right? Get your money's worth.
Which
you've already paid your debt way. Apparently, Ortega's not training with the team anymore. Delgado was not even registered.
I get those guys confused, Edgar. So I know are they both Mexican American? Is it one of them's Ramos and one's Delgado, right? It's
Yes,
Anthony Ramos and then Arturo Delgado.
yeah, both of
Ramos
them
is
are
the younger
Mexican.
one.
Ramos is the younger one.
And he's a Mexican American?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, because he did the video with Marcelo and whoever came that spoke English recently with when they were doing like a marketing campaign. I can't remember what campaign they were doing recently, but so he's the one that started at the U20, and Ortega normally starts those games, even though you should give the younger players the minutes when an older player it doesn't get the nod with the first team. So that's Ortega has been around for such a long time. He probably had a chance at some point. The best I think action that I remember is I think he saved the penalty kick. Lou, remind me if I'm wrong. He came in after like a Nahuel red card, and he came in and saved the penalty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I just can't remember what game that was.
And it's been a while. I mean, this is like 7-8 years ago. It's been a long time. I mean, Nahuel normally doesn't miss many games, and so I mean he's closer. What he's over 30, if not just around there. He never really got the chance to be the type of player to start. So you have a younger keeper in Tapia. You have another younger keeper who is supposed to be developing at the U20 level. So I think it plays out. Let him go. Not sure what the plan is. At some points, Pumas wanted him. I don't think Pumas wants him anymore because they have Julio Gonzalez, and he turned out to be a Mexican national keeper now. So I don't know what his future looks like, and I don't know if he has much market. So he might just be a guy that hangs out around the club and goes the Aaron Hernandez
I,
route.
I hear
Fernandez.
Tampico Madero's back in the Ascenso League, so they might be in search of a goalkeeper.
Dude, that used to be like where we were sending all of our players.
There, Correcaminos
Correcaminos.
for a good minute.
Correcaminos. Other news regarding the America game. Do we know if Linus is ready to rock and roll?
I have not heard anything, man. It's been really quiet on Linus. Not sure what's going on with him.
It's quiet news-wise, but pictures-wise, it's not quiet at all. He's definitely at the top of all social media posts. I saw him today.
The only update I have regarding that game came from Vladimir Garcia. Tigres trained with a double 9 today. Iñaki and Ibanez in the starting lineup.
What do we think about that, Lou?
I actually like it, man. I think it would work out
No,
great.
Lou, don't
Yes.
tell me that, man.
Yes, the only thing I don't like is the supporting cast behind them. That's what has me worried. But I think if you play them both, Gignac's going to slide to the left wing. Not play as a winger per se, but closer to the left wing, kind of making his typical run towards the right, and then Nico will cover that right side. I just the thing with that is I know people will, if Bruneta has a terrible game like he did against Atlas, people are going to want to burn down that lineup forever. And so you risk that where, oh man, it looked like junk and we lost 2-0 and right, it didn't work, and they'll tear it down, but it's because the supporting pieces weren't right.
And that's been the history though with the double 9 at Tigres, especially with more so Nico and Gignac as of recent. I think that even with Charlie Gonzalez, it worked a little bit better just because Charlie was a guy that was just a box presence, and Gignac was younger. He was able to like float out and provide support around buildup. But you're talking about 2-3 years ago, and 2-3 years of aging at the age that Gignac in it's not the same, right? It multiplies in certain ways. And so I'm with you. I think that supporting roles around them are not great, and that's why I don't like it. I think that ultimately, having no true winger on the left side and then having Luis Quiñones provide his, 1 or 2 plays per game where he's successful. I just don't see how successful they can be against a quick defense like Americas is going to be. And, Lichnowsky is going to be out. I mentioned Sebastian Cáceres is going to be out. So you're looking at Ramon Juarez and Nestor Araujo being the starters there. I just don't see the idea of playing two forwards when Paunovic didn't play with two forwards, at least at Chivas. Obviously, circumstances change, and having different skill sets of players, allows you to play with more of a different aspect of lineups. But I just don't see how they can be successful when you have a guy in Marcelo Flores. So is he not high on Marcelo Flores to be the starter at the left wing position?
I don't think he is. I don't think he's high on him at all. And then to be fair, Marcelo didn't even have a great game against Atlas when he came in. He just didn't give us a spark. I think you remember that game against Rayados where Gignac played kind of like a false nine, doing a lot of poste, kind of like post up player kind of activities. I think Pauno is going to go with something like that, where he's using Gignac as a presence there in the midfield, and then letting Brunetta kind of roam free also on the left. You could see a variation of that as well. It could be that he feels like Brunetta is not active enough, and it's because he's too tied up. So it's possible that with most teams playing with two holding mids, they're just tying up Brunetta, and he might be using kind of Gignac as a decoy, where he sets up Gignac right next to those two holding mids, and kind of help him to distribute the ball and let Brunetta run free. I think it potentially it could work. It could work, and then Nico being a box guy, you would just leave Nico in the box, and now with Brunetta running free, you're getting some crosses on the left side, because obviously Quiñones ain't going to give you anything besides just being around, running up and down. And then with Gorriarán having kind of picked up things a little bit, I think that also frees up Gorriarán a little bit. So it'll be interesting. I actually hope he goes for it. I think it's a wrinkle that we haven't tried, and I think it would surprise America a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just I'm not just excited about it. I just don't see, especially with the 2 games or 3 games now under Paunovic that I've seen. Um, I like the pairing of Cordova sliding out left, and even though against Atlas, I mentioned it that the move should have been to slide Cordova behind Ibanez, or Gignac at a certain point, I guess, to play that number 10 role instead of Brunetta, and sub out Brunetta, who had not as good of a game as Cordova. So I'm just not excited about the supporting cast that entails to build up the plays necessary against a strong team like America, because they're going to press, they're going to want to have the ball, that they're going to attack us, and so the chances that we do get, it just seems that we're not going to be as active or quick as they are, and I just don't want to fall into this, just sending crosses into the box from Carioca, right outside the box, or even Nando on the opposite side, and then maybe Luis Quiñones here and there. I just don't see the left flank being a supporting attacking role in this game, especially with Angulo not being the best at times at going down that flank, because one, he doesn't have a true winger per se, and then he doesn't have the offensive capabilities at times.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, we would get Lainez back healthy and Flores up to his best, and that would help us out a ton. But yeah, I'm with you right now. It's tough to trust on any of those guys in the midfield. And honestly, like I prefer Cordova starting right now over Brunetta.
Yeah, man. I really would like. I wish maybe we get this more along in the future with how the trend is going with sports and how transparent decision making is becoming. Not entirely, right? I think that there's still ways to go, but what we knew 10, 15 years ago to what we know now about what goes on with the team and the inside of a team, I wish that we get a little bit more in-depth analysis of the coaching decisions, because I just don't see how Marcelo's not getting the starts. I don't see how obviously Wolaine is coming back from injury, but he should, he didn't travel, even though he already had started training for last week for the game against Atlas. So he should be good in theory against this game for the bench against America. I just don't see the where the trust is not falling with these players. And, Brunetta is getting the nod, even though he's had 3 games where he hasn't looked great.
Yeah, I think Pauno's basing it a lot on work rate, man. I think he's that's what he's interested in right now. Until they implement his style and everything, right now he's favoring guys that can give him a full 90 at the pace that he wants.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that, Lou. Keyword work rate.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like Luis Quinones, he works a lot. He doesn't get a lot done, but we'll see how that ends up looking. And I think that's why Cordova doesn't start as much, is because, or doesn't get the full 90, is because he doesn't always sacrifice.
But he gets more touches on the ball, or maybe not more touches, because I would have to look at the stats of that than Brunetta. But I feel like his touches are more significant. They're more threatening than Brunetta's at times. Brunetta has a lot more involvement with the ball and like carrying the ball forward, right? Like he dribbles forward, and he still plays the ball along the pitch. But I feel Cordova, it just has more of like, a cross here and there, a switch of the field, a through pass that leads to, maybe a possibility of an existing play. And I don't see that with Brunetta yet. I'm not saying that Brunetta is not necessarily the better player, because I think if you ask, 10 people, I think 8 or 7 out of 10 people are going to tell you Brunetta is better than Cordova. But he just hasn't given me that factor that we need.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Edgar, what else you got for us? Anything surrounding this game?
I mean, I think we can still come out with 3 points. We're going to be playing at home. It's just subject to, I mean, I don't know how bad we want it.
10 o'clock game.
Pretty late for a weekday.
10 o'clock game. Mosaico color is going to be a black, which I don't understand. I really don't. I wish. Go ahead.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. You want to do a blackout and you want to make a Mosaico with lights. That's not a bad idea. But for this game, why?
I want the stadium to be full out yellow, like you've been talking about, Lou.
Yeah, we need to do a yellow out. It's just, man, people don't cooperate, man. You tell them go all out yellow, and they show up with their blue and red kits, man. It's just unbelievable. I think the only way we'll ever get it done is if the front office just hands out yellow T-shirts to everybody and say, "Hey, put them on."
Yeah, or like some sort of like incentive.
Yeah.
Like if you come to the game, you get a like little towel or something, like a rally towel.
Hey, there you go. Hey, that's what we need. Yellow out with the yellow rally towel.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know what the intent is with the blackout in the area, and it's gonna look cool with the with the cell phone light at dark or at nighttime. But man, like I don't know. I'm with you. I don't even know how to criticize it in a way where I don't sound like a douche, just because I want to criticize. I respect what they do. They provide an atmosphere unlike other. But guys, let's yellow out the stadium, or do something more than just a blackout. But we'll see what that looks like. After that, we're definitely going to be going into the Santos game. So. I have a note here from you, Edgar. Any rest, any player rotations that we expect happening with this game?
I mean, for me, the only one that really needs to be rested, use that word loosely, Carlos Felipe.
The guy that has the less action needs to be rested.
Quiñones, you want to save some of those super phenomenal assists for Saturday. You rest him.
Oh man, I'm with you. I'm with you on the rest. I think they've earned it. I think they need the the time off in order to be successful against Santos.
I'm almost ready to go Garza on the left, man. Garza on the left, Aquino on the right. I know I'm the most up and down person on Angulo. Like preseason, I'll vote him like worst player performance for the season, and then at the end of the season, I'll make him the best fullback of the season or something crazy like that. I'm very
Bro,
inconsistent, but I'm so ready to move on from him.
I know you're not talking about the best left back in the Mexican League and the all-star player
All star.
representing the league.
Oh man,
That
honestly,
just
bro, that guy would kill it with three in the back.
but that just shows you that like it I can't even like take that serious, because I know that I'm not saying he's a bad player because he's a national team caliber player. He's gotten his flowers in terms of that, but he's exposed at times, offensively and defensively. And defensively, I think is more as a team collection, more so than individually, because it's not like he's slow. He's physical. He's got some feet to him, but he gets exposed through the midfield and the long ball, and because he has to cover space for the other guys. So, but I don't see him as like, oh, we got the best left back in the league. You know what I mean? Like I would probably put him at 3 or 4 as the best left back in the league.
Yeah, and he'll give you 4 or 5 really good games, but when he faces the really speedy wingers, he's toast, man. And then sometimes he, I think he has an issue with communication where he's just doesn't know where he's positioned. He's not talking. He's not in sync with the center backs, and then we get cooked. And then he just looks terrible. And I don't know, man. I just feel like he's not the future at that spot because he's a very, you said it earlier. He's not a guy that's going to give you anything up top. And in the modern game, you need a guy like Aquino, for example, who's going to push up and make crosses and do something. Collaborate with the wingers, make a partnership there. But with him, you can almost count he's not going to partner at all. You know, you just offensively you get nothing out of him.
Our other Edgar, who always tunes in and is watching us, says Angulo needs to go back to his natural position as a center back. At Santos, they started Arteaga and Angulo on the left side, and you know who was the coach?
Siboldi?
Siboldi.
Yeah, I've always thought he would be great as the left center back or the left stopper in a three-man back line. So him, Guido Pizarro, Diego Reyes. That the problem is that most coaches don't want to go that route
Why do you think? Why do you think that?
because nobody wants to play five at the back. Because really, you say three, but you're not playing a 3-4-3. You're playing more of a
5-3-2.
5-3-2. So you're burning players on your back line truly.
But I think that if you had the right personnel, it would be easier to implement. And I think you kind of have to go away from. I don't think obviously that's why it doesn't get played at Tigres. But if you were to go three in the back, you have no need for Carioca to start
Exactly.
in the midfield. You need you need two Nando Gorreran type players, who more box to box, high pressure type, more modern game eights, playing in the middle.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
that's kind of where I think that it doesn't allow you with the type of players that we have. But interesting scenario, which I also, suggested Aquino to be turned into a Carlos Salcido 2011 role, because I saw him at one play during the middle chasing somebody during the middle of the field, and I was like, oh man, like he can get it, he can get after it, because he's been around the game so long. He's a veteran. He's played all over the place for Tigres, and he has the footwork, right, and the quickness to play in the middle. And I was like, man, that would be great because he could pressure and he can shoot. He can like pass and cross. but you would require somebody that has a lot more aggressive approach to moving players around. So that would be somebody like Lau Times coaching Tigres.
Or Rotaciones Osorio, one of those.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that let's go with a prediction before we move on to the last parts of the pod. What are we thinking for tomorrow night?
I'm going 1-1.
Oh, come on, Lou.
Yeah, man. Hey, when's the last time we beat America?
14 games ago.
Bro, think about it. When is the last time we've had such a bad streak against America? I think you got to go back to the late 80s into the mid 90s for a streak that bad. Back when we had like Antonio Carlos Santos and an old Carlos Munoz in the midfield. And I mean,
Yeah, because we avoided them through a lot of the championship stuff, except the when we beat them on Christmas Day in 2016.
we picked up after the 2000s. We started battling, and we did well into 2000 what 14 2016,
Yeah,
and then from 2016 forward, it's been a mess.
no doubt. So 1-1 Lou. Edgar?
I'm gonna say 2-1. We're gonna win at home.
I'm going 1-0. I think it's going to be a tight match. Defensive players would say otherwise, and stats in regarding our players, but I think that because we haven't really looked good, and I don't think we're going to create too many chances against them. But I hope I'm wrong. But I do believe that we'll pull off the victory. I think we changed the history in this game against them.
I hope so.
We'll see, though. We'll see. Moving on to the last few sections of the pod. We've had a couple, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's annoying for me that we're about to be 3 games in and we don't know what players are going to be part of the squad when you need the players. So we know Guido Rodriguez is still a possibility, but some reports have also said that it's not a possibility, that it was just like, hey, what's up, how you doing type conversation, as opposed to, hey, would you like to come to Tigres conversation. So
Donde andas perdido conversation.
I'm not sure if the hype around that is totally true, but if he does come, we've had some presence or some convincing, and a private plane that took him there, of Nahuel and Guido Pizarro present at the Copa America celebrations with Campeón del Mundo Argentina. Thoughts on that?
I was a little bit concerned when I first saw the pictures, but at the same time, I mean, they're professionals. They play at Tigres. It was probably a private jet. They weren't like me trying to catch a deal on Southwest and getting pissed off because it took an hour to unload my luggage.
They weren't on Spirit Airlines right now.
Yeah, they weren't on Spirit Airlines, so.
To me, like, the first thought automatically, and shout out though, Guido Pizarro was the first player at practice the following day on Monday, so just shows you a lot about his character and his leadership. They were both there, so nothing really to talk about, their commitment to the team. But to me, like, my first reaction when I saw the picture, like, floating around online, is like, what other national team do you think not necessarily would allow it, because that's not the best word, but almost like be so inviting, I guess, for them to have joined, right? Guido Pizarro has not been, or Nahuel has been, a presence on the national team in the last, I don't know, what?
6 years?
6 years. I think the last time Nahuel was when he was at the 2018 World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And he was the third keeper. Guido Pizarro, was a regular in between, when he first got to Tigres and then he went to Sevilla in España. And then after that, he had a few games. And so to me, that was more like the reflection is like, man, like, even though, most people can say whatever they want about Argentinians and, they're, off the field, douchey like personalities, their camaraderie, man, and their commitment to the one goal of like their country, right? Like representing their country and soccer and being successful goes beyond like anything else, and it's not really, no, I don't think any other national team comes close to that. And that to me was the reflection. I was like, man, like these guys like have that possibility of being around, even though they haven't been there. Like, I'm sure like Kun Agüero probably I would expect them to see there, but these two guys who play in Mexico and are not, as around these guys or have regular call-ups because they're on the older part of their career or their later stage of their career. That to me was the reflections. Like, what a cool like thing to see that these guys are still, in the mix of this stuff.
Yeah, on the positive side of that too is that I feel like a lot of these guys are going to be ambassadors for us in the future.
Right.
But it's also great to see them getting around, networking, in indirect way. They're kind of putting our name out there as well, which kind of helps, right? With any future recruitments, any future players we might want to bring over. So I think it helps that those guys do have that kind of friendship with people in those spheres.
Yeah, like why was Maxi Mesa not there?
Yeah.
He was part of the national team in 2018 at the World Cup.
Porque no existen los rayados.
Exactly. And it goes back to the presence that these guys are, right? Like I'm sure, even though they weren't playing or getting the minutes for Argentina, these guys were being leaders, and doing what we know that they're capable of for Argentina, Guido and Nahuel. So that was, to me, that was a cool moment to have seen that. So shout out them, shout out their team for winning that. I'm sure, they gave Luis Quinones, a lot of it when they came back.
Oh man.
But other transfers, I guess, since we were on Guido, which probably doesn't seem Rodriguez that's going to happen. We had a new couple names: Joaquim Enrique at Santos and Nicolas Capaldo at RB Salzburg. Joaquim Enrique is a right center back, and Nicolas Capaldo is a center mid, from what it seems like. Both 25 years old, so we would get younger there. Any thoughts on that, fellas?
Santos, I mean, it could be a possibility. They're not playing ball, but Santos still owes us money for the Jefferson Soteldo,
3 million.
uh, and so somehow we need to make that work. I think Tigres might have lowballed them on the first offer, so maybe there's a second offer coming up where we get, you know, we say, hey, you don't owe us any more money, and we give you an additional, you know, 5 mil or whatever it is that we might give them.
We give you
And
a great player named Luis Quinones.
ooh, yeah, that would be fantastic.
Or you can even throw Samir in the mix, right? Like he's a
There you
Brazilian
go.
player, doesn't really count. So I don't know how it would work, right? Because of the wages, but maybe, hey, you don't owe us the 3 million anymore, but like you said, here's 5 million, and maybe you get Samir on a loan.
Yeah. So to me, that's the most promising one. I feel like there's plenty of opportunity for negotiations there.
Now, business wise, there's promise there. On the field wise, that's to be determined, right? I have no idea. I have no scout report on this player. So it would be, again, another gamble as far as the center back position.
Agreed. Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I haven't kept up with Santos, so I don't know exactly what caliber type of player he is. So we'll see. It's hopefully our scouting department stepped it up this season.
Do we have one?
I mean, it couldn't have gotten any better, or it couldn't have gotten any worse, I should say.
Yeah, I mean it's hopefully they do more homework than us.
Absolutely. And then Capaldo, Argentinian. I think, that might be more of a Paunovic or some of the other guys on the coaching staff, scouting um, efforts there. I think it's just, if Guido Rodriguez, Hola Perdido doesn't work, um,
Nos
you can
dejó en
have,
visto.
yeah, left us on red. You can have a guy that has proven to play at a higher level um, at RB Salzburg. So we'll see. I'm not too keen on focusing on that. I think I'd rather focus on the team getting better with Paunovic and taking advantage. Even though we didn't win at Atlas, it was a positive result. We got to pull out a positive result against America and then on the road against Santos, because then we have a month break from the league to fight in the League's Cup and see where that takes us, right? And so we'll get Nahuel back for that. He's probably going to start all those games since he's got 4 games. He'll have 2 games, once we return from League's Cup, more on suspension. So it'll get interesting with the outlook of Tigres and what we're gonna do as far as what the team is gonna look like on the field and off the field with the player personnel.
Yeah, we need to definitely trend upwards. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think we've necessarily had a terrible start to the season. It's been okay, but we need to make sure that we finish well. We finish strong.
Absolutely. Um, Next part, we are talking Amazonas. They're obviously on a break, but we had a couple of players participate in the game against the USA, which they lost. Greta, Ovalle, Alexia Delgado, and Ferral on the roster. I don't think Ferral got any minutes from what I remember watching that game, but Greta played, Ovalle obviously played, Delgado played. So not the best result, obviously. I mean, I don't think they've had great results in the last few games. I think if I remember the last 6 games, they haven't had really productive games, at least offensively. So work to do there, obviously, but it's good for them to represent us and get that exposure against those American players, which they're fighting or will be fighting in the Olympics here in a few weeks. Their next match is against Puebla, and a lot of players on duty. We saw Ana Seca play for Portugal in the Euro qualifiers. Jenny Hermoso played also on the Spain national team, that she's going to be going into the Olympics. So it's also, I'm curious to see the additions that there still need to be made, because I think that Jenny Hermoso being gone, Ana being gone, and the national team for Mexico being gone, you're gonna need some depth, and not only depth, but talent with your depth.
Absolutely. There's still talks about Irene Guerrero joining the squad, and there's still room. So I think the front office is still making some moves, and I think we'll see we'll see the squad get stronger. To me, still on our squad is the weakest link is Mila Martinez. Honestly, because the squad is stacked, man. I mean, we've added some really nice pieces, and Mila, I think, is still our weakest link. Until we get an elite coach, I think we're gonna struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I, I, I just, the decision making, it's just crazy, man. Like, you would think that with so much talent that we've had over the last year and a half, 2 years. I know that we won the championship, in her first season, and Carmelina Moscato also won in a championship. But this team should be flying. Like, there's just no competition for them with the depth they've had since the founding of the league. But wanted to mention, I think Irene Guerrero might be going to America. I saw that today
Oof.
all over my feed. They just signed Cambero's back, and I think that they're getting Irene Guerrero, and it comes from a good source because it comes from Televisa. You know what happens with TUDN and their Aguilácticas with 2 championships. Um, so that's definitely probably something that's going to happen, Luz. So I don't want to break your bubble there, but I don't think we're
That's a
going to get
shame.
Irene Guerrero. Um, last part of the pod, fellas, from the vault. No, two more things before we go. TV rights. So we're it's official. We're on Fox Deportes in the US, and I think it goes back to my theory. You funnel the games through TV Azteca to Fox Sports in Mexico, and then you just funnel them here to the US. You make them, an official partner. But I don't think that's why there wasn't as much of a hype to get us on board with them. And now Estrella TV, that was the one that caught me off guard. Estrella TV. If you're not familiar with Estrella TV, you didn't watch Jose Luis sin censura. Um, all I could think of is Jose Luis. Whenever I saw Estrella TV, um, I can't even tell you the last time I watched Estrella TV, but it's the channel that it's you could rely on, on basic TV besides Telemundo, besides Univision, Telefutura,
PBS.
Telefutura at the time, or Unimas now. So it's super interesting, and like I did some research on it, and apparently they also have some sort of deal with TV Azteca because Ventaneando I think comes out on there as well. So we're getting Estrella TV. So for those that don't want to pay an additional subscription to Fubo or YouTube TV, or you don't have cable with DirecTV or Xfinity or any other company that's out there, to watch Fox Deportes, or if you don't have a Roku, getting all the channels from Mexico, the different method to watch TV Azteca. You have the chance now on Estrella TV to watch Tigres with a local antenna, old school, man. You can go get yourself a eight. I'm sure they're antennas. I don't even know how much they are now, but they used to be $11, $12. I'm sure they're $19.99 now. So you get yourself a 1999 antenna, and you hook up, and you got the Tigres home games from what it looks like in the U.S. moving forward. And with that announcement, we get Pello Maldonado in the States. The Mr. Half Hug Man is making an appearance over in the USA alongside Luis Omar Tapia, which Luis Omar Tapia was a
Former
narrator,
TUDN.
former TUDN, ESPN before that. He's at Fox Sports, so that makes sense there too. Getting the call to maybe I don't know if he's going to be on call for all the games, but I think he'll make special appearances, and I think depending on who's on board in the states, as far as or open, I should say, scheduling wise, that we're going to get different people for these games through Estrella TV. But for sure, we're getting Pello Maldonado and Luis Omar Tapia. Thoughts on that, fellas, before we head to the last part of the pod?
I mean, I think we're getting the best of the best. Fernando Tapia, who was one of the few people that I enjoyed listening to at the one of the ones that didn't make my ears bleed. And of course, Pello Maldonado, Tigres popular guy for us anyways. Not everyone loves him, but I mean, I enjoy him.
Yeah, the positives are that it's free to watch, right? You don't have to pay to watch it. You just need an antenna and you get to watch it. So I think that opens it up to the masses, people that don't want to pay. Uh, Also positive that we're getting Tapia and Pello Maldonado. I think that's great. I think they're guys that are going to give us a fair shake, and guys that we're going to want to listen to instead of guys taking shots at us for 90 minutes. So I think those are the positives. The negatives, I think, is just the front office botched the whole thing. Right? They could have made a big splash by going Apple TV or Amazon. And so I think in that sense they failed. And there's people beyond the U.S. watching. So how are they going to watch that sort of stuff? I think they failed to look at. So I think in a lot of ways the front office kind of failed everybody there. I think they didn't make the right deals. They didn't do it quickly enough. And who knows? I mean, Estrella TV, and it's an unknown network. I mean, really, I mean, we know it because we're
Local.
local. But if you think about it, there's probably a lot of people who are like, "What Estrella TV? What's that?"
Mhm.
So I mean, it's kind of like for a Tigres team that's a big name. I think it's kind of a cheaper network, I would say. But like I said, it's open to everybody. It's free, and let's see how we do. I mean, at this point, we just got to go support.
I think I agree with everything that you say. Um, I would just add though, I think the approach obviously was not the best because I think that they were caught off guard, which makes me think more so now that I don't think Tigres left Tudene. I think Tudene left Tigres, and I think it's because I think Tigres was proposing like more money heading for Tigres because of the ratings, and like it would make more sense. And so Tudene has made so many cuts over the last 5 years with personnel and just different things at their network. So it makes me believe that that's more the scenario that happened. And I think that the approach, and having to like, you know, react so quickly and, get deals done and whatnot, uh, at least, more so for the States is Estrella TV gives you the option, at least in Texas, where most of your fan base and California, where Estrella TV is based out of, to show the fans that they're still doing a part to make sure that they have them close to the team. Because think about 54-year-old and 63-year-old Juan and Roberto and Ricardo who want to watch Tigres and may not have a football subscription or a YouTube subscription, and they might not have somebody help them around to get the subscription or set them up. Having Estrella TV gives them a quick outing to prevent all that. It's like, oh, Estrella TV is like, I can put it on my TV and I know that they'll
Yep.
be on there. So I think that it's a band-aid for sure, but I don't think I think the band-aid is like a quality for what they're doing with it, especially when you have Fox Deportes for the majority of the fan base who's going to probably watch on Fox Deportes through the apps. Or through Roku's, right? If they're set up through Mexico channels in the U.S. But I think that ultimately, I think that that's my perspective on it. I think Estrella TV gives you that, like, if Multimedios were to broadcast in Monterrey, you have Multimedios, and then you have, Pago por Evento, or aficionados with different,
Yeah.
characters. So I think it's not terrible, but I do see your take on, the cheaper aspect of a network.
Yeah.
So
And somebody mentioned in the group thread that we don't know quality yet. And I ought to be honest with you, I haven't had an antenna in a long time, so I don't know. Is the quality good? Is it
yeah,
4K?
yeah, and you don't even need the antenna. It should be like on regular on nowadays it's you can find it on the app itself on a TV, like a smart TV. But if you have literally the like basic TV, you can just go. I think here in Houston is channel 67, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's not terrible. I mean, if you have a good TV, it's just it's not. You can just tell the money's not being put as much into it. And so to me, I'm expecting like remember when you did the Pago por Evento, back in the day, and you would watch on a TV, but like there was obviously the channel that you would pay through cable. Like I feel like you got the better signal through the cable as opposed to the Pago por Evento because so many people were off of one feed. I
Yeah.
feel like that's more of the route, but I could be wrong. I mean, I really don't know what to expect. I'm probably gonna watch it through Fox Sports though, just because I have the app, and it's not that I don't want to listen to Peyo or Lucimar Tapia, but it just makes it's easier for me. So it'll be interesting. I really would like to know if there's any data or stats behind, you know, the ratings or
The
how many
ratings.
people,
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
and see what they do with it, right? Like what the next a year from now, what they do with it, right? And see what the next approach is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go from this. How much backlash they get, or if or the other way around, how much people love it. Maybe people do love it, and they're like, "Hey, stay on." So we'll
Yeah,
see. I
that's
mean,
that's what I'm like I said, that's what I'm curious because of the older generation of fan base. Edgar says, who's tuning in, he said he's going to watch it on Estrella TV, but I know he likes Peyo a lot, so he's trying to get Peyo in through his ears. Um, but yeah, I think it'll work out. Nonetheless, it'll work out. You'll have you know the fan base audience for the younger generation and who has the capability to pay for the subscriptions, and then the local network, which again it's intended for the Texas natives, and with that many fans here, I think it works out. So good note on that. And then last thing before we leave, because I have to go to the airport, fellas, and pick up my mother. She's coming in from Los Angeles. Um, from the vault moment, I think we all came across it. 9 years ago yesterday, André Pierre Gignac and Javier Aquino made their debut against Internacional de Porto Alegre in the first leg of the semifinals of the Copa Libertadores in 2015. God, what a 9 years it's been for both of those guys. 5 championships, campeón de campeones all over the place, CONCACAF, individual accolades, uh, different positions for Aquino all over the pitch. Now club legends.
yeah, you know what's crazy about that tournament when they came in against the Internacional was the first time, even though we started out losing and we had a terrible start, is the first time I ever felt like, man, we have this, like we got this because of the star power, because we had Gignac, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna advance, and you could just tell, right? I mean, right after that, going down 2-0 to them on the road in Brazil, we we crawled right back, we got in there, and we scored, and then when we came home, Gignac with that header golazo against Alisson. It's just you felt like you had kind of reached the top. Like you could battle with anybody on this side of the
The
Atlantic.
continent, yeah.
Yeah, and so to me, that was the first time I ever felt like Tigres had started to reach the peak, and so it was a very special moment. And that to me, that 2015 squad is very special because of that. I know some of you guys favor the 2017 squad, but to me, that 2015 squad I think had it all. And honestly, I feel like if they had just had a little more time together, they would have probably taken that Copa Libertadores.
Absolutely. Um, it just seemed that I wasn't expecting, where we're at with them now. And it's just crazy, man. Edgar mentioned the Club World Cup that I didn't mention as well. Um, and they still have more to give. And that's the beautiful part about it. They still have a window of, that window got stretched a little bit with that campeonato against Chivas, but that window is still there. I think they have a 1 year window of a possible cup, being added if the right moves are made.
Yeah, agreed.
So we all agree, Gignac, player of all time. Where does Aquino rank?
Definitely what, top 7 at least.
Yeah,
7.
arguably top 5.
Yeah.
So real quick, without spending too much time on it, you got Nahuel, you got Gignac in no specific order. You got
Gotta throw
Guido
Tomas
Pizarro,
Boy in there.
Tomás Boy, Barbadillo, maybe.
Barbadillo for sure.
Um,
Lucas Lobos.
The Lobos.
Juninho. Lobos, which I rank Aquino higher than that. So I think okay, 7 for sure. I can sit with that, Lou.
Yeah, for sure.
After that,
Honestly, you know what we need to do on X is do a Mount Rushmore. It'd be kind of interesting, right? Get
right.
everybody's give me your Mount
Yeah.
Rushmore, because I mean we know 2 are automatic, right? Gignac and Nahuel, I think everybody will agree. But the other 2, I think we would get some differing takes. Batocleti, some people would throw in there, So that would be
I think
interesting to do.
I think the top 3 have to be Nahuel, Pizarro, and Gignac.
So who's your 4th?
I
That's
think just because of history and cups, it has to be Tomas Boy. I don't necessarily agree with it because I didn't watch him play, and I think that a player like you know Aquino, even though the highlights are not necessarily there, he's got more championships. He's contributed to all to him. I don't think he's a better player than Tomas Boy's worth, and that's why I think Tomas Boy is easily the 4th one there. But I think the other 3 are lock just because of championships, leadership from Pizarro. Having to go to Europe.
You
So I
wouldn't
think
put Tuca Ferretti in the Mount Rushmore?
no, he didn't play.
But I mean, as far as club history, he's up there.
Yeah,
I mean, in the Mount Rushmore of head coaches, that's number 1.
yeah.
Whether you love him or hate him, he's number 1.
And then you got
Tan-
Carlos
Tan-
Milok,
Tanque Milok, yeah.
Number 2.
and then I think Siboldi made himself a nod
Yeah.
there,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
being a player and being a coach, and I think the third one, you got to include Mr. Carne Asadas and their Tolo Gallego.
Get out of here. No, man, but honestly, I like Neri Pumpido. He just didn't have a lot of hit. He didn't stay very long, but I thought his style was nice to watch.
It was the
It's been one of my favorite teams to watch.
best team prior to the stack teams. That was the first
Yeah.
stack team.
Yep.
Honorable mention there, maybe Batocleti and Leo Alvarez, but I think that it gets rough because I think that the history is very marked by Milok, Tuca, and then now Siboldi, even though he had a short stint.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So Edgar mentioned right before we go, Carioca, Juninho, Ayala, Lobos, Damian. Ayala also top 10, I think. But
Yeah, for sure.
Aquino, I'm going Aquino over Ayala just because of contributory aspect offensively and probably more cups now, right? I think Ayala doesn't have 5, or does Ayala have 5? Ayala has
Ayala's
5.
missing that Chivas one.
The Chivas,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have 5. He has 4. Probably the best Mexican center back though. So it'll be interesting. We got to dive more into that on another time. Maybe next week when we have no Liguilla. I'm sorry, no league. We can dive into several conversations and then prepare a Leagues Cup episode. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Different way of streaming today. We're gonna fix it. I've got the subscription now on X, which will allow me to go live as opposed to just having regular X. So thank you, Elon, for that. But we should be back, and you can find the episode tomorrow on Apple, Spotify, and Goals TV as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, fellas, for taking the time and joining me tonight, and hopefully to another victory tomorrow.
Take care, everybody.